All right. We are live on Facebook, making sure that I am live on LinkedIn as well. Not yet. Okay. Facebook, making sure that I am live on LinkedIn as well. Make sure I don't get feedback. Excuse me, in my ear. All right. Excuse me. My goodness. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another lesson in our opulent thinking for opulent opportunities. I am Vernita. I go by Dr. V, your brilliant solutionist, and all of that jazz. We're going to jump into lesson 4, which is model with mathematics. And if you don't know what I am talking about, scroll the feed or go to my YouTube channel and go to the playlist so you can get all caught up. So before I jump in, people may be experiencing. Hold, please. I forgot to do one thing. Okay, here we go. All right, so some people may be experiencing like a political hangover type based on, just the whole atmosphere. And regardless of which way you voted, I did see my sticker. I voted early. Regardless of which way you voted, it was still um an historical event. So I haven't been in an office space in quite some time, but I remember the tension that can happen uh, after a political event. So what I will say is I hope you voted, and I hope you didn't just focus on the presidential candidates, because if you're in my area, that ballot was long with a lot of stuff. And I personally shamed some people for not voting because they were like, well, I can't make up my mind because of the presidential candidates. And I was like, have you seen our ballot? Is a lot more on there. So I don't like to engage in shame, but for something like that, I did because the focus was like all over the place. I mean, the focus was only centralized in one place where there were so many other issues, but this is not a political, well, kind of, it goes into your thinking and your personal leadership. And I hope that you were able to stand firm and, vote and educate yourself. I was proud to be able to take my grandmother to go vote. She's 83 years old. And while we've had some differences on some of the things that were on the ballot, I am grateful that she stood in her power where she was, and she allowed me space to stand in my power. And we're still grandmother and granddaughter, no issues, even with, all of the results that are coming out. So I hope that you take your personal leadership to that level and don't shut people out. And I'm only bringing that up because I was on a call with a mentor, and they were like, they lost clients because they made a statement, and they were like, well, I only came to you for business, not to hear your political views. And she was like, well, I am a whole entire person. And she wasn't telling people how to vote. She was just saying, like, this is what I decided to do. And she was like, if it costs me a client, it costs me a client. But if I'm talking about being business and how to show up as a leader to lead your company, then I would be doing a disservice to myself. And, I wouldn't be following my own value system of being a leader. So all of this series has been, you will hear me talk about leadership as well. So this is not just about your career or business. This is about who you are and how you show up overall. All right, so that was my little spiel, and now we're going to really get into, oh shoot, the lesson. So the title of this is Modeling Success: How Opulent Thinking Builds Structured Growth in Business and Career. And you read the description if you're on LinkedIn about what this video is going to talk about. And I use the framework of the standards for mathematical practice. And so we're in number 4, and the actual one is model with mathematics, applying mathematical concepts to solve real life problems and modeling complex systems or situations. And you're like, what is this even about? But when I break this down for you, you'll understand how everything around us is based on some type of model. Even in this political environment, there is some type of modeling taking place, right? And so to break this down, if you don't know what a model is, it is a system or a thing used as an example to follow or imitate. And we all heard the slogans, not slogan, well, the phrase success leaves clues. And that partially is true. But what people forget about that is you have to believe in the model that you are following for it to work. So regardless of what, if you disagree with someone, but if they are achieving an outcome, that's because they truly believe in the model that they are following. And if you're trying to follow something and it's not working out for you, part of it is your lack of belief in the model that you are following. And we'll talk more about that. So one thing I want you to think about as we're talking about modeling, this is going to get it's going to be a little nerdy a little bit, but just follow me. So if you understand modeling and coding, when I talk about you have to believe in the model, so start thinking about your belief as code. All right, so like literally programming code, your belief, because that is where a lot of things happen in your mind, and it goes deeper than just your knowledge of something. It really does go to your values and your assumptions about something. So I'll give you a little bit of why this matters to me, and then we'll jump into the three target areas I want to focus on. If I'm looking down, y'all know I have notes, right? Educator, lesson plan. So my background, if you don't know, is programming or computer engineering from middle school and high school. And then I started that way in college until a colon like just challenged my whole life existence. I was like, I cannot be this frustrated because I can't find out where this colon or comma go in this programming. But I was all into that C++, CAD, and I even worked with a robotics company at one point, and even now on the side, I do every now and then I do some like AI modeling work with Python and things like that. So I can still, even if I'm not like super versed in it like I used to be, it's still like ingrained in me to know those things. So when I really started looking at myself, I was like, you know what, I do follow programming and code. Like that's how I am legit wired, right? So although I was traditionally trained that way, like looking over my life, I am legit wired that way. So you have to understand how you're wired because that goes into how you're learning. And so I I've applied kind of that thinking throughout my whole career, through my whole schooling. But when it got to entrepreneurship, I was like, something wasn't working. And I was following models. And I don't want to say that they were the wrong models. I'll say they were the not right fit models, right? Because there were people who were following them and doing those things and things were working for them. I was like, well, why isn't it working for me? And that's because it started getting down into my belief system, my code about what I thought about entrepreneurship. So, or let me just business in general. Let me say that before I just jump way into entrepreneurship. Just understanding the concept of business, and it just wasn't clicking for me for quite a few years until I heard about the sequence, and it was just broken down to me that business is only four moves, four steps, just four things. And I was like, are you kidding me? This whole time, this is really what it was. Now, the people I was working with, they've said the same things, but it just wasn't in a language that I understood it. So before you start looking at yourself like this, I'm not built for this is not for me, if you keep working at it until you find the language that works for you. So when I understood that and it was broken down to me like this is it, this is the step, this is the sequence, this is the secret code, this is the program, it's like it unlocked so much for me because my brain wasn't computing. I was like, I don't get it, or I'm showing up and I'm doing the things, why isn't this working for me? And so I had to understand the code for this, just like I understood code as it went through advancing in my education, advancing in my career, and any other area of my life that I focused on. everything works in a code or a sequence for me or a framework. So business should not have been different, but I was treating it like it was. So that's one thing I want you to understand. Like start looking at your like life as a code. If it works for you, it may not work for you, but if you have that logical mind, then and things aren't quite working, go back and look over your life to say like why was I able to achieve this certain thing and not that thing? And that could be it. So, talk a little bit more about belief as a code. That really is your outdated or limiting beliefs. Some people say limiting beliefs. I say outdated beliefs, but they can be interchangeable. Sometimes outdated beliefs is like you thought one thing, you need to stop thinking that or believing that and go somewhere else and shift that. And then limiting belief is like this is keeping you stuck. Like you kind of want to push past it, but you can't. It's holding you back. So it's a deep rooted assumption, and so when you're thinking about anything, you need to check your belief code and the programming that is taking place in your mind. And it's like a mental model. So when we're talking about model with mathematics and using this framework for opulent thinking, for opulent opportunities, you have to think about your belief system of what's holding you back from the opportunity that you see, because opportunities pass us all the time. And there's a reason why and I'm not talking about the hidden opportunities. I'm talking about opportunities that have been right there in your face. And you're like, well, why haven't I taken that step? What does that mean for me? And it's not so much that you don't know what to do, but there's literally a mental programming or a deep rooted assumption as to why you're not at that level. Another personal story is just, I'm going to show you how tricky this can be and how your programming and your mental models can really sneak up on you. When I was teaching in the K-12 area and I went to go get my doctorate degree, there was still a part of me about not wanting to be a professor because I thought a professor was just like a glorified teacher. And I'm like, why would I just go through all of this just to teach like I was in K-12? That was my limited belief or limited understanding or my limited assumptions of what a professor actually did and who a professor actually was. And it wasn't until I really started embracing that and looking at the bigger picture that it unlocked for me. Because when I graduated, if you don't know, I didn't get a professor job immediately. And at first I was like, oh, people are holding me back. And which part of that was true, but it was more true about how I was approaching the situation and my deep rooted subconscious beliefs about it. And that model kept me blocked. And so and for all of my believers out there, there was no amount of praying and fasting that was going to break that until my belief about something changed. So just putting that out there. So when I did, I promise you, immediately I saw an offer for a position, and I got that position when I started opening up to understanding what a professor was and how I could really, make a difference. And all of that shifted. So that was how my mental model kept me stuck, right? Another let's see, oh yeah, so I had to go and reprogram. Another thing was about how to generate income, and you may be in this place, especially if you've been on the traditional route where you go to school, get a job, and you earn in your career, and even if you're doing something on the side to generate money, but if you think about what are your mental models or your belief code about how to bring in income. Does it have to be through a job, even if it's a part-time job? Does it have to be that way, or do you actually believe that you yourself can generate income? That's a whole nother thing, but that could be something that's keeping you stuck. Whether if you are in a business or you're an entrepreneur, that right there still could keep you stuck at a certain income level or growing or scaling your business, even in your career, that could keep you stuck because you're like, um, your belief about, well, I need this particular job to have this salary. I can't venture out. Just all those kind of things. So just challenge your belief code and do some work on your mental models. So that's one way to look at how this S&P works for opulent thinking, for opulent opportunities. So some questions to ask yourself is like, what are your belief codes that need to be programming about any area of your life where you're trying to up level? And then how can you start updating those mental models? What hard reset do you need to do? And that's where you can work with an advisor or a coach or coach or consultant in those areas because you will not be able to see your blind spots. I remember when I was programming, I would do the code. I'm like, I know I doing exactly what I'm supposed to follow. And it wasn't until the professor would come over and be like, well, you're missing this little one thing because I was too close to the situation. Hence why I was like, I gotta this is not it for me. But that's in any area of your life. You have your own blind spots, but you can self-coach yourself if you come to the awareness that you do have some you need to shift out some of your belief codes and you need to reprogram. And from that awareness, you can do some work and then you can start working with someone to help you see what you cannot see. But you can start a lot of this work on your own. And so this really does go down to how it relates to your goals, your vision, and your mission. So that's the second part that I want to talk about when we're talking about modeling for opulent thinking, for opulent opportunities. So goal setting. I talked about this a few times, and there are different ways to goal set. A lot of us know about, the SMART approach to goals. But if you just go Google different types of goal settings, you'll see a plethora of them. But we just get hung up on goal setting, but that may not be the program model that works for you. So if you've been doing SMART goals and you're like, it's not working for me, well, maybe that's not the right uh the right model for you to follow, and that's okay. Just a little side note. But how does this relate to goal setting? Well, think about this. And I wrote this whole little thing to get my thoughts out. I know some people, especially if you've been in the traditional education system where you went to college and got degrees, some of us with multiple degrees. I got 5 of them myself. So I know a little bit about this subject. There's a lot of people saying that, college was a waste of time, or you didn't learn anything in college, or you got scammed by the system because they told you to go get a job, go get a degree, get a job, and you'll be good for life. All of those things. And whatever your feelings are, I want you to let those go and realize that college did teach you something, especially as it relates to goal setting and when we're talking about a following a model. How many of just think about it, you were 16, 17, 18, and I'm talking about the ones who traditionally went. Now if you went back to school later in life, I don't want to talk to you about this part because it's a little different, because if you're 17, 18, years old going into college, that is a different perspective than if you went later on in life. But we can meet down at the end when I tie this little part up in a bow. So you went there with your limited experience or limited understanding, and they said, go pick a degree, and you did. They gave you a program of study for you to follow, and you followed that thing to a T because the ultimate goal was for you to obtain that degree and to graduate in a certain amount of time. Now, if you added a year or finished a little early, then whatever. But the overall goal was to get this degree in X amount of time with this number of hours. Okay, stay with me. So you had this big lofty goal, but did they show up and say, you know what? You better figure this out because you got 4 years. It was, here's your program of study, and it was broken down by year, by semester, by course, by assignment, and so forth and so on, right? It was all the way broken down. There was a whole thing for you to model. And regardless of your feeling about it, the institution itself is a model that has been around for centuries, right? I think if I remember my studies correctly, maybe the first university was around in the 1400s or 1500s or something like that, like institutionalized. Just think about the Ivy Leagues and their history. So they've been around for a minute. So apparently the model works. So regardless of what you're like, oh, this was a waste of time, if you achieve that degree, then you know how to set goals and you know how to obtain your goals. But it's like when it's time for you to shift to something else, for some reason we've thrown the baby out with the bathwater and was like, oh, this has nothing to do with my degree. But look at the approach that you took to obtain that degree. Now, this is where anybody later in life, if you've entered into the institution of higher learning, and if you've attained even a certificate or whatever it is, you followed a process to attain that goal. So why wouldn't you apply that model to any other areas of your life, whether that's weight release, whether that's relationship, whether that's generating income, whether that's starting a business, whether that's starting a family, whether that's writing a book, anything. So it's like if you're not achieving your goals, then you're not following a model that you were used to following. A lot of us, ditch things because of what we may hear in society. But I even did that for myself. I'm like, this doesn't work for me. And I'm reminded of the song TLC, don't go chasing waterfalls, listen to the rivers and the lakes that you're used to, right? So regardless of your feeling about, you know, higher education, uh don't let's not forget about how a lot of us obtain success because we followed a tried and true model. Some people are saying that, higher learning is dead, college, won't be around for long. Well, they've been, testing the times. And I don't know how true it's going to be, but it's going to take a lot for that institution and the model to not work. And even if you think about entrepreneurship, there when I learned about the four areas or the four moves or the sequence of it, that's been a tried and true model, regardless of what new thing comes out. That's what it means by success leaves clues, but you have to believe in the model that you're going to follow. And then you have to approach the goal setting as an entire system of thinking, just like a program, like a sequence. Like if there's a missing link in the chain, it's not going to work. So if you're not achieving your goals, there's something missing. There's a missing link in your entire system of thinking. And that's where we get into your personal leadership. So a lot of us had stronger personal leadership at 16, 17, 18 years old when we were going into college. Because if you think about it, of course you went through high school, but then you were just dropped off and was like, go forth and conquer. And you managed, and I know you did because not only was I a college student, I taught in college. So, and I've seen this, year after year. And and I know we say, I was junk and dumb. Not really, because you managed to lead yourself following a program of study. If it was a degree that you're like, you know what, this is not, you know, the vibe for me, so I'm going to transition and to do something else. You switch your careers, you gave yourself that agency, you advocated for yourself, you went to advisors or you went to professors or you sought help, you organized multiple courses at one time, and a lot was within a small little planner. You ran your life, you sought out opportunities for yourself to enhance your experience, on campus and things like that. You made decisions for yourself. And I had an involved mother and grandparents when I went to school, but I still, still made those decisions because it was me. I was leading that ship. But for some reason, after we've achieved that big lofty goal, then we get into everyday life and we forget that what we accomplished and we don't have that same level of personal leadership. A couple years ago, I did a post and I was like, don't let your 20 something year old self beat your 40 something year old self, especially when it comes to achieving new heights and your personal leadership. Well, I didn't say personal leadership back then because I'm just now using that phrase, but you understand what I'm saying, right? And so even if you're early on in your career and you're like you skyrocketed to a certain level, then all of a sudden you hit this personal glass ceiling. That's because you forgot the model that worked for you. You need to check your belief code, and then you need to strengthen your personal leadership and recognize that you can drive any ship when you realize, who you are and what you have already accomplished. So anything else, it's not that it's hard, it's challenging, but those other links in the chain, especially about your belief system, that's why you haven't gone to that level. So just make sure, even in whatever is happening, that you stand strong in your personal leadership because you've done it before, and all of that relates to how you're thinking about situations, and then that opens up doors to more opportunities to come your way. So I'm gonna so let me know if any of that is resonating with you about following following a model and then understanding how that mental model works for you. A lot of it is a mental model. So there's a mental model for you to follow, and then there's a tactical model for you to follow. So just like, programming, you got hardware and software. Think about it. Yeah, I like that. I didn't write that in my notes, but hardware and software. So I would consider software is what is happening in your mind and what you're connecting to, like in your heart. Like these two, you need to be in alignment. And then the hardware, like the tactical things that you're doing. So there's two different models that you need to two types of models that you need to integrate in your life for you to accomplish, higher opportunities. Another thing that I will say about that is if you're not going to the level or rising to the occasion of your personal leadership, it's because your vision is probably too small and your goals are too small. And I know that sounds like what? Think about it again, using the college example. You didn't go to college and you weren't there just to take a course. So just think about that like a course and something to do on a to-do list. It wasn't just a bunch of random to-do things, right? Just a bunch of random things. It was a systemized, structured, systemized set of tasks that you had to accomplish to reach this lofty goal that was 3, 4, or 5 years. And that could be at any degree level. Same thing with my PhD. To finish that in 3 years, that was like, okay, I got to put some things in place. I can't just randomly, show up and to use my time strategically because it can take up to what 7 years. I've heard some people to finish their degree, but I had to come in with an actual focus plan and then to use that plan. It wasn't just random. And it was a big lofty goal. If you're not accomplishing things, one, because you probably got these random tasks that you're doing and they're not done in a systemized way and they don't align to a bigger vision. So ask yourself, when was the last time I really had a big goal that was in align to my big vision of myself? I think I did a video and I was like, I want to build $100 million water company. And water was like wisdom advice training for exceptional results. And I got that from Bishop uh, Wayne, Bishop Malcolm, the business bishop, he on YouTube. And so I put that out there and I was like, I have no idea how I'm going to do that. What in the world is this? But when I made that declaration, then I had to get into alignment with it, even if I'm like, I don't know how in the world I'm going to do that, but it came up in my spirit. I'm like, okay, guys, let's go. But then I had to get into check my beliefs about that. And so I show up completely different because that's a bigger goal versus, oh, I just want to start a business because either I got fired from my job, y'all know that, two, or I just want to do my own thing and be my own boss. That's for some of you, that's not a big enough goal or big enough vision or big enough reason. And that's why you're probably still struggling. So let's say, V, I kind of heard what you said, but I don't want like all of that's just like whatever. And you don't want to follow that. So what's the cost of you not doing that or upgrading your codes, your mental models? Is talking about personal mastery or personal leadership, you're going to stay stuck. You're going to stay stagnant. I don't care if your life is good right now. You're still going to feel that tug in you're still going to feel that tug like, oh, I could be doing more. But if you don't work on your mental models, then that more you're just going to keep feeling it and you're not going to attract those opportunities or you're not going to go after those opportunities. And then you're going to start blaming everyone else. And then it's going to go into a downward spiral. Because if you're not moving forward and you're staying still, then you're just going to be stuck and then you die. And I'm not talking about die physically, but you're going to take a downward spiral. You're going to start feeling burned out. You're going to start feeling overwhelmed. You're going to start feeling depressed. And it's just going to keep going and going. So you can choose to do nothing and just sit where you are, or look on the flip side of that and look at a decline that will happen in your life. If you don't, uh, so then if you're not striving for a higher vision or a higher level of goals, you're going to keep going after these vague, low level types of goals that are really just tasks, right? And go back because we're starting to shut down this year, and this is planning season for a lot of people for the next year and the next few years, right? Like I know people who already have their 2026 and 2027 kind of laid out, right? And then think you might, oh, that's too much, but you did that when you were in college. Like you knew what before you even got there, you knew what your freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year looked like. And some of you even knew what postgraduate work, like post degrees, like master's degrees, were going to look like. And then for some, you were in a program that mapped all the way out to a doctorate degree. So let's not act like that's foreign for us to think that far ahead and have an actual plan in place. And that's something that I struggle with personally, of why this entrepreneurship thing in the direction I want to go wasn't working for me, is because I went over here with these waterfalls instead of my rivers and my lakes. And I'm pretty sure that has happened with you. So if you don't do that, then you're just going to keep with the same goal. Just go back and look at your planner or your vision board. Go back and look at it. And it's going to be the same low level stuff because you're not stretching and going higher. As this relates to business and career, if you don't have changed your mental models and your belief codes, it's going to seep down into your leadership and to your team, whether that's on your career path or whether that's your business and it impacts like a business, right? You get what I'm saying? Two different paths, but the bottom line is it is still going uh, to impact your productivity, your performance, and your money, your profits. And you might be saying, well, I'm in a career. We don't talk about profits. Well, that goes to elevating to maybe a different level of your career or shifting jobs where you can get more income or looking for other opportunities in the company to have more impact and influence, which still leads to revenue and all of that stuff. I don't want to get too far into details, but it works in whatever area of your life. So if you don't apply these things, then you're going to be not performing well in any area of your life. The other thing is to, as we wrap up, is to remember that a big takeaway from S&P 4 model with mathematics and how modeling for success works in your career business is to not think of this as just planning. Like I think we've been great at planning. A lot of your great planners, like you can put some plans in place, but it's the execution of the plan, and then it's thinking about having a systems thinking approach to your planning and understanding that all of this has to be integrated into a system. Again, college as a framework. You didn't just go to classes, right? Now, some of you did, and if that's what you did, then this is not for you. But well, kind of like you're okay, I'll say this. On one hand, let's say you just went to classes without integrating any other area. Some of those classes that you took had nothing to do with your degree. You probably thought they were stupid and like, well, I'm here. I was like that. I was like, I'm here for computer engineering. Why am I taking this psychology class? Now I can see how it works. But as a student, I was like, what? In undergrad, why is that here? But it all worked together as a cohesive system to obtain the bigger goal. If you had a full experience, you built your own ecosystem of going to college, all of those things work together. You were a better student in some areas because you had some extracurricular activities, or you worked a job, or you're a part of this organization, this, that, and the other. So everything kind of worked together for you, and that helped, oh, my nose, that helped fuel you to reach that higher goal. So in adult land, whether it's for your career or as an entrepreneur, you have to think about, what does my ecosystem look like? What do I need to put in place and to integrate with my beliefs, habits, and actions for me to accomplish this major goal, instead of having these little isolated things like, well, I want to write a book, or I want to start a business, or I want to have, the family. I want to have better friends. I want to, do this and that, and do this, that, and the other, and you're feeling stressed out and burned out, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't do it all. You can't do it all fragmented, but you can do it all if you start having your own ecosystem. All right. So let me know if you're tracking with me. So it's not just planning, but it's planning with systems thinking in mind and how all of this works together as an interconnected system. All right. So I know this lesson was probably like a little nerdy. I tried to break it down as much as possible. Let me know some of your takeaways from that and how this relates. So, and let me know how you see how this relates to opulent thinking for opulent opportunities. All right. Now, if you want to go deeper with that, and you're like, okay, you keep talking about leadership and you're talking about building your own ecosystem. I just set it up. It's on LinkedIn, it's on my featured section, and on YouTube, it'll be down in the description box below. I did this challenge a while back, but I'm letting you, I put them all together so you can look at this masterclass for leverage and lead your experience and expertise. It's complimentary. You can sign up for it, and then you can watch the videos, and then you can go through some of the steps and build the foundation and you'll get a better understanding of what I mean about building your own ecosystem and creating your own economy and starting that way. And then there'll be an opportunity for, if you want to take an even deeper dive, to join me in a series of workshops that I'm doing in November and December. But I don't want to talk about that until you go and look at the master class, and you'll see the opportunity I'm talking about. Because whether you watch the master class, you will get results. I know you will from the master class. But then if you're like me, you want the opportunity to be able to be like, okay, now I need somebody to look at this, that, extra set of eyes, or looking at the blind spots. That's what the workshop is for. But you can look more about that when you go to the Leverage and Lead link that's on the feature section of LinkedIn and down in the description box on YouTube, right? So I'm not doing those workshops like forever. They're only going to be, I think I only have 5 of them set up. So start watching the masterclass now, and get some traction, and then let's move forward and get your 2024 and 2025 and possibly 2026 in order. All right. So thank you so much for listening and learning with me this morning. I hope you go and strengthen your personal leadership, especially in this political climate, regardless of the results. And if you like this vibe, be sure and subscribe and share, and let's stay connected. And until next time, I will see you on the other side. Stay brilliant, my people.